Hey guys, welcome to Flip Flop on SumSoc. I'm Flip. I used to be a SumSoc player once upon a time, but now I'm pretty washed. You could almost call me a content creator, but even that's pretty much a meme. And my co-host,
That's me. I'm Flop. I also played in amateur up until last year. Currently, I played Split 2 for Gravitas LCO. But yeah, we played SumSoc, last year, I think?
yeah,
I think
last
it was... I forgot what the tournament was, but it was like, I think in June or something last year, where we were playing for Weekend Warriors.
year. We played last week. So I'll just go pretty much in order of the games that were played. So I'll start off with Dissonance versus RMIT. In my eyes, it was pretty stompy, this one. Dissonance took pretty much control of the early game with mid-bot prio. You have anything to say about that?
I think Dissonance is a team, like, they can look actually quite good, but they can also just look really, really weak at the same time. Like, this game, this is one of their performances where they just ran over RMIT, who is one of the weaker teams in the league, but, like, it shouldn't have been this much of a stomp based on the two teams on paper, I think. I think TK top is pretty oppressive. I did like the... Oh, actually, no, that was a different game. This was the Mod top. Yeah, the Job and Jungle. Okay. What did I think of this? I think Tudo, Volution and Graves, Bose's Graves did a pretty good job of pushing tempo. I'm pretty sure all of them, like, at the 15-minute mark had a pretty big shutdown. Like, the game really wasn't that close. I think it was pretty over at 12 minutes. Apparently, they were up 6k gold.
Basically, the only thing I remember from this game is Shaq's early TP top to turn a play around, and then Tudo just like free farmed mid, got an XP lead, and then just had mid jungle prio for like the whole game, and they just giga stomped.
Oh yeah, this was the game where where was it?
Oh yeah, the bot lane also giga 2v2'd.
Not only that, but they also read that the Jarvan was popping into their bot side jungle, and they collapsed on Jarvan invading, which like really pushed Jarvan's tempo behind. In a jungle matchup, that like Graves can really start snowballing if he gets a farm an XP lead, because he just farms the jungle quicker and he just scales with gold better than Jarvan does. So I thought that was really good by Dissonance's bot lane. But yeah, I said there was no major misplays until they like didn't end the game properly. I find a lot of these stomp games, the teams like overcommit and try and end it with like just one final team fight when they haven't spent their gold or something like that, and that happened in this game, but there was no turnaround, there was no comeback or anything like that, so I thought the game was pretty clean.
Nice bit of freelo for Dissonance on that one.
Yeah, and they needed it too.
So the next game was Weekend Warriors versus Cloud. Oh, this game's...
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot to talk about for this one.
Yeah, so I'll just start off by saying Ro's draft. I mean, some of the pieces he has are tough to work with in terms of draft, but I think that he could have done a better job this game. Just Akali Yasuo last two picks, there's like clearly some sort of miscommunication there or something.
I thought the Yasuo was just so out of place in this comp. Like, Yasuo, Refury was like, must have said something like, okay, I'm just gonna shit on whoever it is, Totorific, in the 1v1, just give me a champion who can just, like, style on them. And Yasuo fits that description, right? But, like, he has no knock-up synergy in this comp. Their comp doesn't have any wave clear. Because we're talking about, like, this comp should go into a 1v1, but they have no wave clear to prevent...
Yeah.
The Cloud Siege, who have Caitlyn who can Siege, and they have good pick potential with Thresh and even Lee or Ornn to start the team fights.
Wave
like,
clear or disengage.
Yeah, like, I just really wasn't a fan of this draft by Weekend Warriors. I thought Jack Valiant had some really highlight moments But I suppose that's the solo laners of Weekend Warriors in general. They're gonna have like huge highlight like plays, and the Akali had a really nice what was it? I think it was a bot lane near
2v1.
the 2v1 near the bot inner. Jack Bellamy played it really well, but they drafted themselves into a corner. Like,
And they gave Suho Thresh.
yeah, I really think Suno I think Rengar Thresh should be permabanned against Cloud. Like, I think Shark, he's just a one trick, and Suho, well, I shouldn't call him a one trick,
Jacob
but it's
was jungle
easily
this
his best
game, though.
trick. Oh, true, that's right, they subbed him out. Okay, well, aside from that, Suho's Thresh is, he's been playing it for years. He's had it banned against him in so many tournaments too.
The ban rate would be like 90%.
Yep. We did it all the time as well against him. Like, I don't think Thresh is good enough to be one in the current meta. So I think you just ban it. Like, I'm looking at the bans. They banned Zed, Bard, Blitzcrank. I think you can easily drop the Bard or the Blitzcrank ban. Probably the Bard ban because you're B1ing Soraka here. And then, yeah, you just replace it with the Thresh ban, and this comp makes more sense.
Yeah, so basically once it hit mid-game in this one, they just got sieged to death. Do you have anything else about this? I'm pretty good.
I think the Weekend Warrior solo lane, or specifically Rio in this game, had some moments where he just got caught out and he wasn't paying attention to sub roam or jungle tracking or something like that. Because I think there is a world where the solo laners, once they get into their 1-3-1, are so strong that Cloud can't set up their siege. And like, the solo laners have too much prior that Weekend Warriors just win through solo lane gap. But you have to have two hard winning lanes for that to work, or at least even lanes, and just outscale in the 1v1s. And Yasuo was never really that much of a threat. I should also point this out that I was coaching Weeknight Warriors who playing under Weekend Warriors up until about 2 months ago ish, so I'm pretty familiar with these players. And Vendrick, I think, had a very good game. He kept them in this game, kept the team fighting reasonably close until the very end, where they just kind of collapse under the continuous pressure of Cloud. So I think Vendrick played this game pretty well. So I'll give him credit where credit is due.
I will say that he built. I think he shouldn't have built with second this game. Should be against his game. He's like the main team fight threat, and he builds magic resist into Galio. But I agree, he did have a good game.
And he needed to, because I'm looking at the Cloud comp. This is actually a comp where Vayne can really do well in if he's playing well. But I mean, Vayne as a champion in general is like, if you misplay micro, you can just insta get one shot and die. But yeah, I think he played it well. But I don't really have anything else to add to about this game specifically.
Yep. In the same vein as Ruben getting caught out, Tsukihime was also getting caught out.
Yeah, true.
That's about it.
Yeah.
So next game is Desire vs Exile.
Mm-hmm.
This was one of the ones where they just shouldn't have let. I mean, they shouldn't have let Rengar through against him. And Voice actually had a banger of a game on Ziggs as well.
Yep.
10 CS a minute.
I think Voice. I was talking to Vendrick when, like, a couple of months ago, and he said Voice is the best AD in SumSoc. And the more I look at Voice, the more I understand why. Because I think I can't think of a performance where I was just like, okay, Voice really griefed that. And he just had another good game. And it works with this team because Zingy is very... he likes to move around the map a lot, which works well when your AD is just fine to eat waves and not be dove, which is what Ziggs needed to do this game. You're the solo AP threat. You were vulnerable to being dove, but he played it well enough that he never gave Exile the chance to do that. So I think Voice played this well, but I also think Desire, they this is a team that really enjoys fighting and skirmishing in the early game. They are very aggressive, and this is just another game where that happened.
Yeah, I agree with that. And they actually drafted a really good comp to facilitate that sort of play style. Actually, the Rengar Galio was pretty Gucci ganger.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Who is Panda, by the way? Is he like a Rengar main or something? I'm not actually really.
he is a Giga Rengar one trick.
Okay,
From his
so we've got
I
two
think
of them in SumSoc.
that's based only on his op.gg.
Right. I mean, that's all the information that we can get. Obviously, we like it's
Unless we know
unrealistic
the
for
players.
us. Yeah, unless we know the players, we're not going to just like message them and just ask them for the complete champ or whatever. That's just not going to happen. I'll just say this about Exile. I think the early skirmishing was not that bad, but the problem was that all the gold was being funneled into Ornn, which is really not what you want.
Oh yeah,
Because he scales more with levels and with items. Because like he gets a huge breakpoint at level 13 where he starts facilitating his other champions, but he doesn't really need the gold himself. Like it's not really that useful for him. And MF was never really a threat in this game either. And the comp was mainly just bruises and tanks. So MF was the real hard carry of this comp, and she started goals in the early game. So the game just kind of collapsed around her. And also, that comp is very hard to play into as any immobile AD. Rengar, Wukong, Galio, and Leona, like, yeah.
The tools are also kind of weird for facilitating the MF ult. Like displacement, not really lockdown.
Yeah. The MF was picked 1-2 on red, but yeah, they really just don't have any sort of like a Mumu ult or any sort of AoE like CC to actually help the MF get good ults off.
Yep. Alright. So next game is Ziz versus Nebula. Oh yeah, I remember this game a bit actually. So Jungle Man just
I messaged him after the game and I was telling him that we're going to be making this podcast, and I was just like reviewing the game, and he was like, please don't talk to me about this game.
yeah.
He said he soloed through, which is like pretty harsh. There was the moment in the mid game where he tried to turn the game in Nebula's favor with the ult. He missed it, and then they get turned on, engage, and lose Nash, and they basically lose the game. I'm assuming that's what he was talking about.
I mean, he tried to make multiple desperation plays to turn the game for them around this game, I believe.
Yeah.
Just one or two Xmithies too many.
Yeah, the one in the base as well was it was just tragic.
I do think the early game pathing from him wasn't that bad though. He went straight topside to put Akali ahead in the pretty volatile matchup.
Yeah, that's the reason why I messaged him. I was like, okay, this Sedge pathing to counter the all-in by a blue who was going to solo kill was like really, really 5-head. I thought it was really, really good, and Nebula had a really clean early game as well. What actually happened, I remember there was a turning point. I think it was a top 2v2 skirmish or something where Ziz start turning the game around because Nebula were in control of the first, I think, 10 minutes or so.
Oh, there was like a play on both sides of the map, I think.
Mm.
And Nebula lost both.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure this game was relatively close up until there was a Drake fight. I think it might have been the third. I'm not sure which one it was.
Oh, that sounds likely.
Yeah,
it's
and
classic
there was a really smurf hard engage by Ziz.
Classic Ziz gameplay to sack the first two Drakes and play for number 3.
But do you remember that team fight specifically? I remember there was a really clean hard engage by Rakan into the AoE ults of Irelia, Ziggs, and just a really, really clean team fight that basically, like, the game was theirs to lose from that point onwards.
Yeah. After that point as well, the vision control, like Kane went, Gooby went Umbral second.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
item is
His vision
so
score is
strong
just
right now.
nuts.
Yeah, Blue Cane
And
with Umbral Glaive is so hard to actually like.
Zombie Ward.
Yeah, and Zombie Ward. It's so
Just
hard
disgusting.
to keep your vision control against him. So he's so mobile. He just eats through all the terrain, just one shots every ward. It's just really, really oppressive. But Gooby played it well, right? They were very patient with prepping their Nash vision. I think Ziz in general understand how to team fight and prepare objectives really well. That's one of their strengths as a team.
This was another game as well with Ziggs bot 10 CS a minute, just waiting for mid late.
That's mainly what we've seen Ziggs do in recent weeks. Like, I'm not thinking of a performance where Ziggs is like hard played for and they're getting like full turret or like 10 minutes turrets, or whatever held, which is another way to play it. But I'm trying to think, but I can't think of that happen. No, it's not the only way.
I do think that we're seeing more weak side Ziggs than that, which I kind of think that other playstyle is better, but what do I know?
Yeah, I think when you have blue on your team with a hard carry champ in a volatile matchup like a Kali versus, or in a hard carry versus hard carry matchup, let's say, where it could snowball either direction, playing for topside early just seems fine to me, especially like blue is just a good player. And to be fair, Tomasino, I also think, has had some very impressive performances as well, so I don't mind them playing around topside early. I think it's based on draft. It's
kind of necessary. I just keep seeing people counterpicking the Ziggs with Vayne, but I don't like it very much. Like, Vayne has zero way to contest the wave against like Ezreal, let alone Ziggs. I mean, that's hyperbole, but
yeah, I think people don't really understand Vayne as a champion. Like, there's this understanding of she's just an insane late game champion that scales like linear through the game. Like, she's always just going to get stronger and stronger. But the way I see her is the reason she has a weak laning phase is because she has no wave clear and she's short range. So a champion like Ziggs can just play the wave and not interact with Vayne at all and get prio and then look to siege. So by crashing like the third wave or fourth wave or whatever, just stacking a huge wave, they can play for turret plates like that. So I don't think it's necessary to play topside here, but based on the players and the team's playstyle, I think it's fine for Ziz to be pathing topside here. I also think...
You mean for Nebula to be pathing topside here?
Yeah, but I think Ziz chose to not opt into that like 3-wave crash and play around Ziggs playstyle, which is just a different way to do it. But Vayne should never be like pressuring Ziggs in the wave clear and pressuring like turret plates or whatever, because Ziggs can just dictate the wave state however he wants in the early game. And until Vayne at least has probably first base or level 6, it's pretty hard for Vayne to actually do anything about it. As long as Ziggs is playing the wave and not looking to actually contest Vayne.
Yep.
I don't really have that much to add about this one though. I think Ziz team fighting good, basically.
Yep. And after the Ziz comp gets ahead here, there's like no way to stop the siege with Vayne AD. It's like the same issue as the Weekend Warriors comp from before. You're drafting 1-3-1 solo lanes with a Vayne AD.
They can't play for... I think in their heads they were like, okay, we can get a Kali ahead and then we can play maybe like 4-1 or something, but the team fighting from Ziz is just too strong if Irelia ahead, I think.
Yep.
And Ziggs should never really be that far behind as long as he's not being like pressured off the waves or being dove, which he was never in this case. I think a lot of the top teams aren't. They're just opting out of like playing for the 2v2 bot side, and they're just getting their supports to like level 3 or whatever, and just moving with the jungler. Which, yeah, we saw in this case.
Cool beans. So the next game was MCOM vs Sanguine. Oh yeah, so this was the one. Yeah. They flex picked the Ziggs and then put Vayne top with no TP. And then played for the Giga 1-4. So who invaded and forced the vertical, that's right.
I think that's right. From memory, this was the top side v bot side game. Like, the map was just split down the middle, and MCOM were playing around their Vayne top side, and Sanguine were playing around their bot side. The problem is, if Vayne gets enough gold, she can really bully this 1v1. And Safa is, well, he's played Vayne in LCO before. I've seen it before as well, since I was his former teammate. And he was funneled gold through Herald top. I remember that specifically in this game, there's, I think, a dive bot by Sanguine and a dive top by MCOM, and MCOM just broke the tier 2 top while Sanguine was still trying to
make the bot play. Yeah, they had Herald going.
Yeah. And MCOM just ran away with it, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
They had a 7k gold lead at 14 minutes.
They lost a 50-50 on Baron though. They just aced them after that.
Yeah, that's
right. It
right.
didn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, unlucky Sanguine.
I think... Yeah, I mean, it's just... What can you do? At that point, like, they'd committed their resources to their bot lane, but they just weren't getting enough out of it, especially when they were racing against Herald. Yep. Dejong played well again. Solo killed his mid laner.
Yep.
Very good.
After blinding. Lee Singer, I mean, it's a flex pick.
Yeah, true.
Has Hua played a single Lee Sin game? I don't think so.
I would have to go through it. Not off the top of my head, though.
Yep. I do think, I will just note one last thing, that it looks from the way that Sanguine's drafted that they want to play for the Amumu roams with Ezreal playing weak side and play around the LeBlanc. But I guess that just goes down the shitter when LB gets solo killed.
Yeah. Sanguine... Yeah, it just looked like they had, like... I'm looking at this draft and it reminds me of like the Sedgeborn Ezreal type comps where you just get your sub jungle to just move together and leave Ezreal to weak side. Which makes sense, but they hard played for the Ezreal in this lane, and the solo laners both got gapped. And then the game just collapsed around them.
Yep.
So, not much to do after that point.
So the next one is Ziz vs Exile.
Yeah, so this is day 2.
Yeah. This one was actually super enjoyable to begin with. Obviously Ziz were thick boy favorites, but
oh right,
the Exile made Paulie Boy and Back made some juicy early plays. They got a 2v2 at level 2.
Yes, they killed Thresh at level 2, but I think Exile's bot lane has actually been performing pretty well recently. But this game was just... This was the Elise game, right? Yeah, Gooby... he just didn't want Dream to be playing the game at all. He just repeat ganked him. So, Dream burnt Flash, I think it was at like 2 minutes or something, and he died 4 times before his Flash came back up. Because Kled pressure in the 1v1, it's a very winning lane once Kled gets any sort of lead. Elise was just not allowing Dream to ever push out the wave. And Gooby just played the early game so well. Like, he just influenced the solo lane so hard that the MF and Mumu combo in 2v2, it just wasn't enough to actually influence this game.
Yep. Especially with the hard dive from like playing M. It's another rough game to be trying to play MF.
Yeah, I think the problem with their comp is that this is like a very easy to execute 5v5 teamfight comp. The problem is Ziz doesn't need to opt in for team fighting. They can perfectly just 1-3-1 with Thresh or Felios, where Thresh can just play for Lantern. Fiora, just no one can match Fiora at this point. No one can match Kled either. Like, their side lane pressure was not good in either lane for Exile. So once they actually got their 1-3-1 set up, it was really hard for Exile to do anything about it. They could hard engage. Well, they could try to hard engage on the 3, but you're hard engaging onto Thresh with Lantern up, and Elise with the Repel as well. And Elise doesn't even need to play with those two, but like, who matches Fiora once she gets enough items? Like, what do you even do about that?
Yeah, there was nothing to be done about that. I do remember in the very early game, Tofu had some good counter games to relieve a little bit of the Elise pressure, but it's just too much.
Mm-hmm.
And Poppy was winning lane for a time, but eventually, yeah, the Gooby pressure. This was another just nuts game from Gooby.
Yeah, I think that's just the nature of the matchup, though. Poppy versus Fiora.
Like, yeah, it just turns at some point, like every Fiora versus tank matchup.
Yeah, I guess so. Fiora is just disgusting this patch.
Yep, cool.
Blue played it well, so
hats off to him.
Yeah, I mean, I think just Blue's a good player. He gets enough credit on the broadcast team, though.
Yeah, he doesn't need us thickening up his ego.
Yeah.
So the next game was Nebula versus MCOM. You don't have anything to add?
About the previous game?
Yep.
Oh, no, I don't think so. So, Nebula versus MCOM.
Oh, yeah. This game started off with a good, like, mid gank. I'm thinking of the wrong game. Oh, this was the game where Silas was just all over the map.
Yeah, this is where Silas Sedge just started grouping. Yeah, so Silas got a super, like, far early game lead. He was, what was he? I think 3 or 4-0 or something.
Like 4 minutes or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yep, 3-0 I think it was. But yeah.
And once Silas Sedge just started grouping in the mid game, they just had so much pick potential. Silas being a melee champ and his follow-up CC. So if Sedge had ult up, you just ult someone into Silas E into just one-shotting because they're both melee champs, so you can proc the Sedge stun again. And they just did that so often that it was so hard for anyone to actually enter unwatered territory for Nebula. What happened with the Ziggs this game, actually? Did Ziggs just free farm again?
I guess so. He was strong in the Giggle. Yeah, that's right. In the quiet late game, it just became a soul fight. And the Ziggs Aatrox, like the team fight from MCOM, was a bit too strong. So they just won the soul fights.
That's right. Okay, so this was the game where Jax was really doing well in the early game against Safa.
Yeah, that's right.
And Safa R5'd Aatrox here as well, which we both thought that was like interesting. But the more I think about it, like, you're not picking Aatrox here to beat the Jax in the 1v1. Like, this team is so good at team fighting. Or the team comp that they've drafted, the Leona, Sedge, Silas, Aatrox, Ziggs, where he just wanted to eat the sideways, start moving, and just 5v5 team fight. And he did such a good job once he started grouping, like, and he even managed to turn the 1v1 matchup in his favor as well. So the Jax pick just looks so irrelevant once the matchup started to swing as well. I think Safa played this game really well, and he was just a massive monster in the mid game.
Yeah. Once again from Nebula, it was some good jungle pathing in the early game to get their win con ahead, which was, you'd have to say, the 1-3-1 or 1-4 with Jax Vayne in the sides, or just Jax in the side. But yeah, I remember that was a like giga patient gank to get first blood out from Jungle Man on the Abyssal Mar. Oh, I think Jack's got it regardless. But it was weird that Suffer got like a thick CS lead towards the mid game, even though they were playing so strong through the Jacks.
Yeah, I remember this game, and Safa had a 60 CS lead at 20 minutes, which is like just insane. In a matchup that we both thought should be Jack's favored, or at least a skill matchup, let's say. But it should start swinging in Jack's direction, as most matchups do in the isolated 1v1.
Yep, especially after it gets a lead in the early game.
Yeah, and to Safa's credit, he just managed it well. And he just started grouping for the team fighting, and he did Aatrox things with Gore Drinker. And he was just a huge front line that Nebula could not deal with.
Yep. Along with 3 other beefy boys in Sedge, Silas, Leona.
Yep. They did mess up their ending though, MCOM. I remember when they were sieging top, Safa was going in and Leo
1v5 under Nexus turret.
Yeah, and Safa continued to go in and made some very in plays, but it didn't change anything in the grand scheme of things. It just reset. And Team 4... Actually, was this the game where there was just like a 1 minute extended team fight by MCOM? I think it might have been. Actually, no, I'm thinking of a different game. This is the team fight where they team fight around Elder and...
Yeah.
Yep, and they just crushed the fight.
Yep. I mean, Nebula at the point of the Elder just had to try and make a desperation play.
Yeah.
Well, so on to the next was Cloud vs Sanguine. Are both jungles paths down in this game? I mean, it makes sense that Shark would want to play around the, MF and Mumu bot lane, and same goes for Lloyd around the Samira and Leona.
Oh, right. Okay. I was trying to think what happened this game. I remember Suho played the level 1 as a Mumu very well. He hit both his Qs. They didn't get first blood, but they chunked their lane opponents to 1/3 each at level 1, and that's just what a Mumu can do. Like, that champ is very, very good at level 1. Just in general, but especially at level 1. So I think Suho has been playing pretty well as well. I think he's been Cloud's shining light, even off Thresh. So because everyone knows that that Suho can play Thresh, but I think he had a pretty good game this time. One thing I did notice is there's a very, very specific point. So after the Amumu and MF control their lane state after chunking their opponents, they hard crashed the second wave instead of the third wave, which is a huge error because MF is the best AD at cheater recalling after third wave. Because of her strut move speed, she can just strut back to lane, and I think if you hit every minion, you can get an extra D-Blade or Cull or whatever you want, but they opted in for boots. And Amumu didn't really get a really good buy, so I'd like to see them properly slow push the third wave and crash that one instead of the second one. But they still dictated the bot lane. I think up until the point where Samira just got enough levels.
I'm pretty sure they just dictated the whole lane. Samira never turned it, did she?
No, she did. So what happened was, I think it was level 4 or whatever, MF just walked into the range. So the problem, they get the kill onto MF, but I remember this game because I remember the MF getting insanely strong, and that was her one death.
Yeah,
maybe she died a couple of times at the end, but I remember for the mid game she was really, really strong with one death, and that was the one. But Samira in general, you really want to get through your first, I would say, 3 levels, 3-4 levels, just kind of not being pressured and not dying. And once the lane starts to stabilize, you've eaten the wave that's crashed under your turret, and you can actually start fighting again, she can really, really excel in these 2v2s. Like Leona as well, like she's just been so good this entire season. So this team or this 2v2 has so much burst damage that as soon as MF stepped up into the Leona E range, she was just dead. So Sanguine bot played that well. Oh, actually, do you remember the top lane as well?
Yeah. This was Rin just hard gapping Zonely with the Lilia matchup. He just had Prior the whole game. He solo killed at least once.
Yeah. Lily did solo kill. So this is one of the things I actually really like about Cloud is their willingness to pick Lilia in general. Like, I think Lilia right now in solo lane is actually quite good. And they R3'd it as well. Oh, they B3'd it, sorry. And so they were just flexing it in their draft as well, which makes their drafting a little bit more unpredictable. And who was it? Ren played it well. So I think Lilia specifically is one of their best drafting tools, let's say.
Yep. I also do remember the Cloud bot lane rotating for an early Herald play. They're killing mid by themselves on the way there.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah, that was how they got so far ahead. They were playing pretty good macro in the early game with a winning lane. Just moving first to all of the neutrals with Strut and like Gallia's just eating waves for free in bot in the 2v1.
Was this the game where I'm pretty sure MF and Momo went mid, they killed Ori, but at some point they lane swapped top as well. This might have been after
it was after that.
Yep. Okay, so like that 2-3 minute period, like the gold swing would have been huge for Cloud. They just out macroed Sanguine and just outplayed them. And I remember MF being a huge problem in this, in the late game team fights.
Yeah, I mean the team comp for it is like pretty good as well.
Yeah, like Amumu, maybe her best lane partner, probably. But I mean, Amumu's just broken right
Leona
now. Leona
also pretty good.
Yeah, Leona good too.
Yeah, Amumu Prio has been picked every game, but it's still too low. It should just be banned. Banned on red side, maybe?
Can't ban everything though.
Yep. True.
Unlucky. What happened after that? I think they just ran over the game.
Yeah. They started Baron, turned it, won the fight, got Baron, and then just ran over the game.
Yeah, the game was just doomed at that point. I remember, they ended the game with 24 kills, 6 deaths at 26 minutes. Like, it was a very clean game from Cloud.
Yep.
Who could possibly be versing this team again in the deciders. Sorry, not deciders, the tiebreakers.
Yeah, sure.
So Mental Edge goes to Cloud for now.
We'll see who's playing against who tomorrow, I guess. So next game is RMIT versus Desire. Yep, cool.
Yep.
This was like Desire just giga played for Soul. They got it so early this game.
Wait, who was Akane playing? Was this? No, this wasn't the Diana game. He was playing Lee.
Yeah, this was the Darius game.
Oh, the Darius vs. Wukong game. Yep, I remember now. Oh,
wait, this was
the Cyrus game where he got insanely strong. Shit. Okay, well we fucking done goofed, haven't we?
Yeah.
I thought it was a different one.
Oh well, unlucky. Shit analysis.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're just D-Jensen.
We just continue.
I remember this one. Okay. Because I remember thinking in the game, so Sedge popped topside early. I think the skirmish was even, but Lee didn't show up to it at all. He was just farming. So in the early game, Sedge was forced to play for Helena's while Lee was just eating his camps. And then Silas was able to, this is the game where he got 3 kills at 4 minutes. And he was quite strong.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so they won the Darius Sedge won did have pressure in the lane for a time, but it was like just didn't matter. The rest of the map was giga too strong.
Yeah, and then Wukong solo killed Darius later on anyway. Oh, actually, I'm pretty sure they solo killed each other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pretty
they
back and forth.
But like, it obviously wasn't hard winning for Darius at that point, whereas it was just hard winning for
the rest of the map.
Yeah, for the
so
rest of the map for Desire.
Did Wukong just? I think they both might have just grouped and fought.
I remember
Because the Wukong's pretty important for their team fight.
Yeah, but I remember in the early game. So after all the shenanigans, there was 2 TPs going topside or something by RMIT, and then Akano just popped bot side while neither RMIT solo laner had TP, and just forced a turret dive, and just dove them pre-6. Like, Lee didn't even have kick yet, and he just was willing to dive. And yeah. Akano as a player was just like that, having played with him before. Like, I know he's just willing to take these kinds of skirmishes and fights and just mechanics on you.
Yep.
And then, yes, this was the game where Zingy just abandoned his AD and went topside to dive their top lane as well, and they just won that fight as well, which is not super common to see the supports roaming topside, but they play the map really well, Desire, and they played it well in this game specifically, where they had the Amumu roaming topside and then forcing that fight.
I think Armadillo also was roaming pretty well in this game, but did not matter.
The Silas was so strong at that point, I'm pretty sure, and he just ran over these fights.
Yep. Okay. Last game.
Well, I just want to finish up on that last one.
Yep.
So this was the game, I remember it now. This was the game where, so at 24 minutes, the Kai'Sa hits a W and just R's straight into Darius's head. Just full Chad Kai'Sa ult. Ends up getting a triple kill, and Desire starts sieging, but they can't end. And once RMIT spawn again, they like basically force another team fight onto Desire. Desire end up winning that fight, and then just end the game. They basically won 2 team fights before resetting, and they just win the game at 26 minutes. Which I thought was just like, it's not your typical League of Legends in the sense of like, we're playing the game super macro sense, more in turns, or like using our gold lead and making smart decisions. They just said, no, we're better than you, we're just going to kill you, and they did.
See that a lot sometimes in this league.
Yeah, Desire. I think Desire would probably be the team that does that the most. They just say, we're just going to kill you. And they're second place for a reason. Yeah.
Okay. So Dissonance versus Weekend Warriors versus Dissonance. Camille was dummy thick in this game.
Yeah.
This was that 1-4 from Weekend Warriors.
I don't really remember how the early game went though, to be honest. All I remember is like the last 5 minutes where Weekend Warriors, like, they just had Camille in the side lane, and Dissonance could not deal with the pressure. Camille just eating the bot lane turrets. I remember she was even hitting the Nexus turrets at one point.
Yeah, while they were Baron dancing. That was pretty well played.
Yeah, I think the Weekend Warrior macro in the last, let's say, 5 minutes of this game was really good. But even like 10 minutes or whatever, they know how to play with Jack Valiant and Camille. It's one of his signature champs. So they must have had like a lot of practice with him. They also had Camille Gallia as well. Actually, we'll get to this later. I remember there was a team fight where Curate played it really well against Camille Gallia, but what actually happened in the early game? Oh, okay, I remember. Both junglers were pathing top side. I remember this. They both started bot side. Kane ganked the top lane super early and got first blood. I remember Kane in the mid game was up a lot of CS in levels. Like, he was an issue for Dissonance. What else happened though? Oh, Kane got form at 10 minutes. which I'm pretty sure is pretty good. I think most Canes are aiming between like 12 and 14 minutes or something, off the top of my head. Yeah, but he was up 20 CS, 3 kills at 11 minutes.
This
So
was
he's
like
definitely impacting the other game.
quite a slow early mid game from memory. I think they played like heavy for vision and slowly set up the 1-4.
Oh, no, yeah. I mean, you're right, but I also remember what happened. Wukong was just being hard bullied.
Oh yeah, of course.
Of course. He also never bought tabbies. Well, okay. Sorry, I'm not sure what he ended up building, but in my notes, he didn't have any boots at 19 minutes. That, like, I mean, I think that deserves to be called out. Like, that is very, very int in this matchup, I think. Like, I think you can definitely go tabby early here. But anyway, the Wukong got picked on early and was never able to match the Camille in side lane again. And once Weekend Warriors got into the 1-4, they played it well. It was pretty hard for Dissonance to actually do anything. I think Dissonance needed to like force some sort of 5v5 hard engage with the Wukong Sedge alley. They definitely have the tools.
I do remember that Dissonance made some pretty decent fights in the mid game to like buy a bit of time. Like they made a purple gun engage that I remember.
You're just analyzing the ADs.
Yep.
You just always do.
Yep.
Do you remember the fight where I think it was between mid tier 1 and 2, where Weekend Warriors initiate the fight and they try and Camille Galio onto Aphelios and he Zonyas it, and they turn the fight?
I do remember that fight, I think.
Yeah. Well, the problem with that is you can only stopwatch once. So once that was down, and they didn't really get that much off it. It was mainly like a game neutralizing, like we're going to stall out for a little bit type play. And once that was done, so like Camille just goes back to the side lane, and it's really hard for Dissonance to do anything. And if Weekend Warriors do decide to team fight, they can just Camille Galio onto the Aphelios again, and there's not much they can do about it.
The Zeke. I don't think the Ziggs flex worked very well this game.
Yeah.
I mean, no flame. I actually think he had a decent game, but I don't want to see Queer on Affy that much.
You're very
critical of Affy gameplay.
Players, yes.
Yep.
Being the king.
A connoisseur.
King.
Yeah, I am the king. Thank you. The washed king. Do you have anything else on this game?
I think Weekend Warriors understood that they shouldn't be flipping Nash. Like they played around Nash really well. They didn't just force it randomly. They didn't, they weren't ever in a position where Dissonance could just flip a team fight and then secure Nash and actually come back in the game.
They're dancing very well this game.
Yeah. And they played it slow, and that's what Camille needs. Like, she just needs time to be in isolated 1v1.
Yeah.
And then she broke bot tier 3.
Nexus turret.
Yeah, Nexus turret. I think she might have started on the second Nexus turret.
Not sure.
I'm not sure, but they played that macro well. And this is what Weekend Warriors can do if they play a comp they're familiar with and when their solo laners get ahead. Specifically, this one was Jack Valiant because he was the one in the 1-4, and Ryu was just playing Galio. But yeah, I think Weekend Warriors, this is one of their cleaner games that I've seen.
I feel like, unfortunately for Ruben, that those kind of drafts work well for Weekend Warriors, though, because he can actually play Galio Lissandra, whereas Jack Valiant's not going to be playing anything with nearly that much utility.
Yeah. He needs to see big damage numbers, otherwise his brain explodes.
Can relate.
Just AD mindset.
Carry mindset.
I don't really have anything else though. Oh, they ended the game like very macro based. I remember that they just broke all 3 inhibs with Nash, and they just ended the game. And it was really, really clean the way that they actually like destroyed the Nexus. So good job, Weekend Warriors. You played a clean game.
So we'll go on to the tiebreakers now. So the 3-4 tiebreaker is MCOM versus Nebula. So I'll start, I guess. MCOM is my prediction. Expertly worded. I think that Daejong has been the unsung hero for MCOM. He's been like solo killing in every game he's played recently, if not every game. Almost every game he's played recently, if not every game. Sorry. I also think, I mean, obviously they've looked a lot better since they added Suffer. My expectations were maybe too high, but I think he's played the micro not as well as I expected in some of these lane phases, but in the mid-late game, he's clearly doing something for this team because they've looked pretty good. What do you got?
I think, so I've heard a lot of people, well, like talking as if Nebula are just doomed, and I don't think they're doomed, even though they're, I think, on a 3-loss streak. Like, none of their losses have been stomps, and they've been competitive in all of them, and they probably should have won some of those games, to be honest. Despite saying that, I'm still going to predict MCOM as well. I think they got a huge upgrade in Safa. I think they've been looking a lot better. They've beaten the 3 top teams. For sure, Desire, Ziz, Nebula have all lost to MCOM. Which is obviously a huge achievement for MCOM as well. I think they look like the better team, but I think the top lane matchup can still be volatile. I think Safa was kind of griefing the early game in this game, and if the matchup swings, like if the matchup swings in the Jack's favor, let's say they play like the same matchup or whatever, it's unlikely, but let's say it does. Like the Jacks could easily run over this game.
If they were to run it back.
Yeah, if they were to run it back. Like that's not that unrealistic. Like I still think MCOM, I'm gonna say like 70-30, I would say, in MCOM's favor.
Yeah.
Hopefully George, Jungle Man, doesn't play Sejuani and Int again. That wasn't even this game. But
I was actually gonna say, as for one thing I don't like for Nebula is I don't like their Sedge Pro. They've picked it in a couple of games I've seen it. It hasn't looked. I mean, it's hard for anything to look good when you're losing, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And have you seen Nebula play Ziggs? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah, so it feels like Nebula need to ban Ziggs or Picket for me.
Hey, B1's in this matchup.
I think it's kind of. I'm not too upset with that, to be honest.
I think it's okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's fine here actually. But yeah, I think MCOM more likely. I think I want to see Nebula do well again. Like, I like to see teams that are dominant that still remain strong, even if they're like losing. But a 3-loss streak for a team like Nebula, they would be very upset with that. Who claimed that they were not going to lose a game during the season. I think having a week off would have been probably preferred. Just mentally reset, just play a whole bunch of scrims, just have some time to recollect themselves after the 3 losses that they had.
Scrim some shit teams.
Split, I think. Like they have the players to be able to do it, but at this stage I don't think it's super likely. So I'm gonna say MCOM win this one.
So we'll go into the other tiebreaker. As a caveat, we actually don't know what order they're going to be playing in because it's based off average game length time. But the tiebreaker is for 6, 7, 8. It's Cloud versus Dissonance versus Sanguine.
Mm-hmm.
my prediction is Cloud come out on, well, actually the order I said it in, I think Cloud's going to come out on top, so 6, Dissonance 7, and Sanguine 8. What have you got?
I think Cloud, yeah, let's say Cloud 6. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's, honestly, I'm just going to pick the same as you. Even though I don't really want to have the same predictions as you, I think it's alright. I think Sanguine haven't looked particularly good. I think the best, their shining light, let's say, is their bot lane. I think they had a really good Trist-Rel performance. I think it might have been against Ziz, actually.
Yeah,
it was against Ziz's virus, and they were just diving him as well, and
they solo killed multiple times.
Yeah, and then they dove him under turret, and I'm pretty sure they broke the bot lane turret, and then Blues led just 1v9 the game. But aside from that, like, I'm not really seeing these huge performances out of Sanguine's, their solo laners or their jungle. So I think out of those three, they're probably the weakest. As for, I guess I'll move on to Dissonance. So Dissonance, sometimes they just look really, really good, and then sometimes they just don't, which is disappointing. Dissonance, I think their main 3, even 4 players have been together for quite a while. So I know Junior Burgers, Bose, Curate, who used to be Vincent Jr. But
and that is Tudo mid.
Yeah, that is Tudo.
I think we already said that
for a while as well. So like, it shouldn't be like a communication issue. Like, it shouldn't be, you know, a team identity issue or whatever. They're just.
I almost feel like it is a team identity issue.
You think so?
Yep. What if from the games we've analyzed, can you think of a win con for them to draft towards?
Yeah, actually, I remember. I'm pretty sure I told you this, right? I was like, I'm really struggling to find what they actually do as a team.
We had this discussion.
Yeah, but they should know. Like, they've been playing together for like long enough that they should have worked this out. Like, how many scrim sets do you think they've played at this point? So I don't really know what the solution for them is, to be honest. Like, where do they go from here?
Yep.
That being said, I think the solo laners are just a tad better than Sanguine, so that's why I'm placing them higher. I think Junior Burgers and Aurelia, very good, but it's basically always power banned against him, from my understanding anyway. Yep, it is. Same with Vincent Jr.'s Straven. They're just good at those champions.
Yeah.
But drafting against them, very one-dimensional and predictable. As for Cloud, actually, do you want to talk about Sanguine first? Or, sorry. Fuck.
You can just finish and then I'll go.
Okay. So Cloud, Cloud had a really,
Didn't you already
really good
talk about Cloud?
No, I talked about Dissonance, Sanguine.
Okay.
So Cloud, they had a really clean win, I think. Yeah, they had a clean win over Sanguine. They beat Weekend Warriors just by outplaying Ryu, by exposing the fact that he will always try and fight you when he's playing these like carry champs like Yasuo. I think Suho has had a pretty good split. I think, who's the jungler? Shark has been fine too. I think I'm just looking at this team, they just look a little bit better than the other two in specifically as support, and I would argue probably their jungle too. And just their team play, I would say, is slightly better than the other two, so that's why I'm going to be picking them to win it. But I also think we don't know who has to play 2 games and who has to play 1 game.
Yep.
So obviously the advantage goes to the team who only has to play one, because they obviously win the first game by default or they have a bye. But they're also able to see the draft of the winning team, so they can see what they're prioritizing. And I think they might be playing on a new patch, which is actually relevant as well.
Did I actually say that it was going to be gauntlet style seeded by game time?
Yeah.
Cut
You
that
forget
out.
that you said that.
Yep.
Well,
I know I said it, but I don't know if I said gauntlet style.
oh, well, it's gauntlet style.
Yep.
Yep. So we don't know at the current time, like, who's in what position, but my prediction is Cloud is going to take the last spot.
The highest spot.
The highest spot, yep. The last playoff spot.
Yep.
What do you think, so?
Yeah, so my prediction was obviously the same. Like I said, dissonance. I struggle to find their identity. But I do agree. I feel like their laners are just better than Sanguine's. Same goes for Cloud. I feel like their laners are better. I mean, Cloud has a head-to-head against Sanguine recently. Yeah, in the Sanguine matchup, Rin just shit on all of the lanes won and the jungle won. It was a pretty clean win. I don't have that much to say about these teams.
Yeah, I think also, like, they all finished 3 and 6, but Cloud have looked the best in the last 3 weeks or whatever, which is relevant as well. Like,
recency bias is real, but it's also relevant.
Yes, but I also think it's relevant because you're playing the game on a later patch, which is in theory should be closer to the patch that you're playing on. So it's closer to the League of Legends that they're going to be playing the tiebreaker on. So the champions that are in the meta currently, like Amumu, Cloud, have shown that they can play and they can excel at. I think Suho has had some good performances on Amumu, so that's why I'm leaning towards them. Yep. I honestly wouldn't be that surprised if any of these teams win, though. Maybe Sanguine.
I'd be surprised if Sanguine won, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Looked very good.
Yeah,
Dissonance can have up days for sure.
Speaking of Sanguine not looking very good, do we want to talk about the other teams that didn't make it here?
Yeah, we can talk about those briefly.
Okay, so who were they? Oh yeah, Exile and RMIT. I mean, according to my recency bias, Exile are looking probably better than Sanguine.
Mm-hmm.
But the strength of schedule, I want to say, didn't allow them to make it all the way. And RMIT, Landon's just in elo hell.
Alright, so I'll start with RMIT. Yeah, I agree. I think Landon had... I remember the game against Weekend Warriors where he just 2v1'd the Kha'Zix Vlad in the early game, as the Aatrox had a monster performance. And RMIT should have won that game. And then Rakan walked up to the Nash, just W'd it and just stole it and kept Weekend Warriors in the game. And I do think that was game losing. I think if RMIT got that Nash, they would have won the game, because they also won the next team fight, which means if they had Nash, they would have got so much more with a pushing Nash wave. That's just... It was a tragic game, honestly. Landon played super well, but yeah, I think the rest of the team is just kind of weak. But yeah, I think they're just outmatched in pretty much all their roles except for top. And that's why they placed out of the playoffs. As for Exile, I was talking to you about what I thought about Exile, and I actually thought they should have been the 6th spot for playoffs. I actually think they're better than all the teams that are fighting for the playoff spot, which is unfortunate for them because they're always playing catch up because of their poor early performances in the first couple of weeks. They should have won, I think, or they're in a decent spot against Weekend Warriors. Do you remember watching this game? they were in like a pretty good spot early.
Yeah, the Fiddlesticks lane ganks were good. I do remember this game.
Yeah, they just had some micro misplays in the team fighting, and Weekend Warriors just ended up winning it. What was the other games? They against Desire. This is I mean, we've talked about all these games, but
Yeah.
like they didn't seem that weak in any of their games. Like their
They
games
put
were
up a
generally
fight.
competitive.
Yeah.
Like even the Ziz one, who theoretically they should have hard stomped this game, right? Ziz,
Yeah.
based on the teams on paper and their overall records. The XR bot lane really stepped up, and I remember that the Amumi MF 2v2 kill.
The vision play.
Yeah, where they fake base, they Amumu hard engaged, and they just bullet timed with Amumu ult, and they just won the fight. And I remember, I think in this game, MF Amumu had some decent fights, and then the Fiora took over the game, and they got into their 1-3-1.
Yeah.
And Oriana was just a cannon minion by the end of the game. But yeah, like they looked competitive in all these games, and they should have won a couple of them. Like if they just won the Weekend Warrior one, or if they won, one of their other close games, they would have been fighting for this playoff spot as well.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate.
Better luck next split.
Yeah, I think I also used to play with Polyboy as well. Come as you are, I think he's gotten a lot better. Like I was actually quite impressed with his performances in recent weeks. I remember the MF game. I think he played Ezreal against Dissonance as well, where they beat Dissonance as well. And I think that game was competitive, but I'm pretty sure XR were in a good spot. I'm trying to think of what the team comps were. That's right, yeah. So this was week 6, and they played the team fighting well. They played around Nash well. They impressed me, which is a shame that this is the end of their split, to me anyway.
Yeah.
Add anything about either of those teams?
No, I think that's good. So we'll move on to the MVP section. So we both picked an MVP for the last week. If you want to go first.
Yeah, and you had the same choice as me initially. I picked Gooby. So he played Elise, and what was his other game? I think it was Kane.
Blue Kane.
Yeah. And okay, I'll go over the Kane game first. This was the vision denial, the stranglehold type gameplay where they played the macros super well, and I'm pretty sure Kane was a monster in these team fights as well. But especially the second game where he actually just did not allow Dream to push out the wave ever, and then basically made Oriana completely irrelevant. Like this was just a bullying of poor Dream. It was pretty tough to watch, to be honest. And then he even influenced the top matchup to get Fiora rolling, and once their solo lanes were ahead, they just got into their 1-3-1 and basically won them the game. I thought Gooby had a really, really good week.
So I wanted to choose Gooby as well, but ladies first, he can have it. So my choice will go to Daejong. I think he had a really killer week. He definitely solo killed both games this week. The first game was blind Lee Sin flex pick, but I still think he had a really good game. I'm not actually sure who should win the matchup out of MF LeBlanc Lee Sin, but he definitely came out on top there. And the other game, what did he play again?
The Silas game.
Oh yeah,
The Silas Sedge game.
it was just disgusting. It was
Yeah.
shitting on people left, right, and center. So I guess call it there.
I think Daejong, the last 4 weeks, ever since his Corki game, has looked insanely good.
Yeah.
I remember the Corki game was really, really good. But ever since then, he's just impressed me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just put the Corki game on his back, and then after that game, he actually had a top, I mean, another solo laner that could absorb a bit more pressure.
Mm-hmm.
No flame to Uwa,
Wahoo.
MB. But yeah. Hey guys, I'm just re-recording this part to say that you can hear my voice through flops as well because we're recording this in the same room. So the audio is a bit scuffed as well for this episode. We should have it rebalanced for next week. You can find me on Twitter at Dogboss, that's DWGBAWS. I've been trying to be more active there, so if you have anything to say about this episode, you can hit me there or in the comments of this video. You can find SumSoc, the comp we're talking about, at twitch.tv/SumSoc.
Yes, and you can find me on Twitter as well at Mr. Floppy Sock.
We hope to get this episode on Spotify and at some point, but for now it'll just be on YouTube. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. We'll be uploading on Sundays, so I'll see you then.